My name's Allison, and for our discussion today we're talking about Chapter 2, which is Building on the Tradition of Excellence. This chapter, they discuss the history of education, the different events, people, and programs that have made early childhood education the way it is today. So I'm just going to get into a little brief summary about this. It is important to learn from the past because we can learn from our mistakes, and any teaching methods that didn't work out, we can change it to make them work. A lot of the controversies that we have today have already been discussed in the past, and they just keep coming up. But you don't want to get stuck in the past because there's always new research, there's always new methods that are being developed to improve early childhood development. And what I found was really cool is in the book they show a timeline of, like, in 1968, I think it was, like, the first children's book came out, and then it just shows over time to 2011, where the government donated, or gave $500 million to the education system. So I found that really, really cool. And with the kids, their perceptions of the kids have changed over time. For example, like in the 17th century, kids were viewed as adults, so they had to help their parents, they had to go to school, and they had to work, kind of type thing. Whereas in the 18th century, smallpox broke out, so the view changed to them being more of a kid, being more like precious, and less of an adult and doing adult-like things. Whereas in today's world, social media has kind of taken over, and kids are growing up to be way older than how they should be within their age. For example, when I was 13 or in middle school, like, nothing was really happening. But now 13-year-olds or kids in middle school, like, they're dressing up, looking like they're like 18, 20. So it's a little weird, and they act like it, so on, so on. Early education was strongly influenced by a lot of people, but definitely by Western European ideas. A few people that strongly influenced these were John Amos Comesius. I'm probably going to say all their names wrong, but he was a minister who wrote an education reform and directed the school so that he could put out his ideas into practice. And he had three key ideas, which were teaching methods needed to be radically changed from prominent approaches to make learning easier, deeper, and more pleasant. Sorry, I fell over my words. Also, teaching should engage children. Teachers should engage with children in their nature and follow their lead. Children also should learn their own language rather than Latin. He believed that children were born in the image of God, and he disagreed with any physical punishment. Another influencer was Johann Pasozzi. He founded his own schools and trained the teachers. He believed that the teachers must study the child development in order for them to succeed. He also thought that learning processes through stages, and the learning processes happen through stages, and the children need to master their skills and knowledge in order for them to move on to the next stage, which I agree with, because I feel like when you're younger and you're trying to learn new things, my mom always made me master all my flashcards and stuff, and so that helped me for when I got older, with my study habits, and it just helped me get just mastering all my stuff. He also felt that children are motivated to learn by their interest, which I also agree about, because you're more prone to learn something and be interested in something if you like it. Another person is Maria Mastasio. She worked with poor children in the slums of Rome. She believed that what appeared to be mental retardation was not biological, but it was based on the lack of stimulation to their environment. So what she did is she created a definition called absorbent mind, which I really like this definition. It's her image of the child that is actively learning from their sensory experiences, which I 100% agree, because I feel that when I'm more of a hands-on learner than I am sitting down looking at a screen or something and learning. But working through things, figuring it out on my own will help me benefit me more than just reading something. She also, although European ideas were not necessarily the best educational concepts in the world, current practices in the U.S. strongly reflect these early influences. There are events and people who propelled the kindergarten, nursery school, and child care movement, so I'm going to talk about that for a little bit. Kindergarten. It was founded in 1856 by Marguerite Schertz. Her teaching method was based on Forbes' original vision, which means she used a lot of blocks and like toys and stuff to help the kids learn. And then later on, Susan Blow became the major voice for expanding the kindergarten movement. She created an international kindergarten union to protect the Forblian, which was Forbes' vision. And it kind of worked, but in the last of 19th century, so the end of it, G. Stanley Hall launched a child study movement, which is scientifically documenting the children's individual development under the leadership of Hall and his partner Arnold Gillies. This movement was important because it helped a lot of the changes within the kindergarten movement. Another one is the nursing school, and it's super similar to kindergarten, but this school trains the teachers and studies the children. So they are kind of like studying what's going on, and their philosophy was based on nurturing the development. And lastly, the child care movement. This movement, well, kindergarten and preschool grew out of the child study and focused it more on middle class children and their education. So no one was focusing more on low income classes or low income schools or anything. So the child care movement came from social welfare efforts for poor families, focused on the need to support working parents. So it became more of like a physical care than it was more about educational. So I don't really like that movement, because I feel like if you're gonna run a daycare, you should do little things throughout the day that will help these kids develop the skills that they need. So African Americans and Native Americans have always had a hard time with education. African Americans have been denied education since the beginning of slavery, but even after desegregation became the law, equal rights and education opportunities were still denied. So there's obviously a like Civil War or Civil Rights movement, and Black people or African Americans really fought their way for their education, which they needed to. So all their hard work is now being repealed, but it was necessary because it expanded the field like tremendously. So I really like how everything has evolved into equal rights, equal education, and everything. And the Native Americans, now this I find cool, because well, not really cool, it's kind of sad though too. In the early 19th century, children were often being sent to boarding school where they were not allowed to express their native culture. Schools were also established on reservation, but controlled by the Bureau of Indian Affairs with the goals of assimilating native peoples in their larger society, thus suppressing their culture identity, which I find really, really sad, because I feel like as a culture you should want to share and express your culture. It makes us all different, and it makes learning more diverse and better for you. The federal legislation between 1965 and 1978 changed the education for the Indian children. Funds became available, bilingual education was provided. So I think like overall the evolution of child care has become much better than what it used to be in the past. I do believe that we have a lot of work to do. There are a bunch of like new studies coming out, brain research that I think will really benefit child development in the long run.